Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's interview. We are here with Ms. Tatum, who works with ENGin. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your organization?
Yeah, certainly. So my name is Rose Tatum. I'm the volunteer manager with ENGin. We are a nonprofit organization that connects Ukrainian youth with English fluent volunteers for one-on-one English language conversational practice and intercultural exchange. This is all done online, and yeah, I should mention that we started in 2020, but have grown tremendously over the past 2 years and connected thousands of Ukrainian students with English-speaking volunteers over the last 2 years.
And I really love your guys' mission. Would you mind kind of explaining why you guys got started?
Yeah, sure. So our founder is Katerina Manoff. Katerina is a Ukrainian American, and she actually was tutoring a Ukrainian student online. And Katerina lives here in the US. And this student that she was tutoring was actually a top student in both her school and the country, Ukraine. But she still, although she was a top student, had been studying English in school. So she had a great understanding of English grammar and vocabulary. She had very little practice speaking English, and she struggled with it. So that's when Katerina started doing some research and realized that there's a huge need in Ukraine. Ukraine ranks 30th out of 35 European countries in English proficiency. And because English is a worldwide language, not having the ability to speak English limits one's academic and professional opportunities. And so Katerina saw that there was a need and decided to create this organization to fill that need.
And would you say, due to everything happening in Ukraine right now, you've seen an increase in the people you serve?
Absolutely. So we took a month-long break when the war began in Ukraine to try to figure out how our organization would continue and how we would best be able to serve the Ukrainian youth. That's since we started back at the beginning of April, we have had thousands of people sign up for the program. What we've seen is the need to learn how to speak English has become more pressing because so many Ukrainians, one, they have a disruption in their schooling. Two, we've expanded our program to include Ukrainians up to 35 years old. So now we're including 13 to 35. And that means there's people who are affected who are not only in what we would consider high school here and in the university and colleges. There's also people in the work field who have lost their jobs. So everyone's being affected by the war. And so for those who have decided to stay in Ukraine and those who have fled to neighboring countries, learning how to speak English fluently means that they'll be able to navigate the refugee process. They'll be able to find potentially online jobs where English is a requirement. And they'll be able to use ENGin as a supplement to missing some schooling, having that opportunity to not only practice speaking English, but also we connect students with volunteers who have similar interests when it comes to education and careers, and that provides additional opportunities for learning.
And I'm sure it means so much more now. It's not just the language, it's definitely a tool to be used in so many other places. And
Absolutely.
you mentioned how you have a lot of volunteers. So would you mind kind of elaborating on how people can get involved with the volunteer process and what exactly that entails?
Yeah, definitely. Something I wanted to hit back on the previous question was, um, you're right. It the program does so much more than offer that opportunity to improve spoken English. There are these connections being made, and more than anything, Ukrainians are now having the opportunity to tell their story to people outside of their country, and it's giving us on the other side the opportunity to have a better understanding of what that experience is like. As for becoming a volunteer, so there's a few steps in the process. The first thing you can do is go to our website, which is enginprogram.com, and click on the volunteer tab. There you'll find all the information about what is required of volunteers and how to get started. So the requirements are you have to be 14 years of age or older. You have to be willing to commit at least 1 hour per week for 10 to 12 weeks. If you want to do more than that, we welcome it, but that's the basic requirement. And you have to be fluent in English, not necessarily a native speaker, just fluent. So those are the three requirements. The first step to getting started to becoming an ENGin volunteer is by completing our application. So when you go to our website, you click on the volunteer tab, you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see a link for our volunteer application. Complete that volunteer application, then you'll receive an email that invites you to an interview. This is a 15-minute informal interview. It gives us the opportunity to get to know you, to make sure that you are a fluent English speaker, and to have a better understanding of what your availability is, what your interests are. All these things help us match you with a Ukrainian buddy that you'll mesh with. After you complete your interview, you'll then receive an agreement that you have to sign to become a volunteer with ENGin. Once you return that to us, you're then able to sign up for volunteer training. So the last step to becoming an ENGin volunteer is taking a quiz and passing it. It's a short quiz. It doesn't take long. And as long as you attend the volunteer training or thoroughly read our volunteer handbook, which is found on our website, the quiz generally isn't an issue. So the next step is to attend the training. If for some reason you can't attend the training, you, like I said, can read through the handbook. Once you've attended that training or read through the handbook, you take the quiz, you pass it, and then we match you with a buddy. Sometimes that process is immediate when the matching process, sometimes it's very quick and sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It just depends on, we want to make sure that we find the best match for both our Ukrainian student and our volunteer. We want to make sure that you have a lot in common, that you're both available at the same time, and that you're around the same age as well.
And obviously, people can volunteer with you guys if they want to make an impact for Ukrainian people. But do you have any other suggestions for people seeking to make a little more of a difference? I know a lot of people watch the news and think that's so sad, but there's nothing I can do about that. So, do you have any tips or suggestions for people seeking to get a little more involved?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to get more involved through ENGin that can help make a difference. One is by hosting a Q&A session with one or more of our Ukrainian students. So the way that this has been working, generally it's been done in classrooms, but it can be done with community groups or if you want to gather friends and family. We have lots of students of all ages in Ukraine that really want to share their story. They want people to understand what's going on in Ukraine, why it's happened, and how it's affecting them and their family personally. So by hosting one of these Q&A sessions, it's all virtual. You host the student via Zoom, and they have an opportunity to tell your group about who they are and what they're experiencing. And then your group has the opportunity to ask questions and gain a better understanding of what their situation is like and how you can help. The next way is there is an organization that when anyone reaches out to us and asks us where you should donate, there is a Ukrainian organization called Rizom, I believe is the name of it. And we have, I believe, a link on our website where you can find more about this organization. But the funds donated to this organization help Ukrainians directly. And like I said, it's a Ukrainian organization. It's based in Ukraine. The funds are going directly to helping Ukrainians with those who have lost their income, are in need of food, shelter, are internally displaced, or are now refugees from the war. So the way that it's spelled is RAZOM, if anyone wants to look that up.
Okay, and I'll definitely include that so people can hopefully donate to it as well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of sharing a little bit more about how volunteers make an impact. I know maybe people just think it's just an hour and I get my volunteer hours for this organization, but how does it really go beyond that and actually does make a real world impact?
That's a great question, because sometimes it's hard to see what type of impact this is actually helping or making. But our goal as an organization is to transform a generation of youth in Ukraine, a generation that will rebuild their country, a generation that will create more academic and opportunities for those that follow them in their country. So you're meeting one-on-one with your one Ukrainian student, you're giving that person the so many more opportunities to develop themselves, to gain an education, and eventually develop a career that they may not have had access to otherwise. And in turn, the more Ukrainians that we're able to reach, especially those that are considered youth, which is up to 35 years old, the more that we're able to reach, the better it will be for Ukraine as a whole. Because, like I said, when this war is finished, it will be this generation that is rebuilding the country and making it better for those who follow.
And would you say there's a common perception people have of Ukrainian people now that especially the war is going on that you wish they didn't have, or do you wish people knew more about?
I don't know about any negative perceptions per se, but I think that the war in Ukraine has made us here in the US at least more aware of Ukrainian culture and people, and um, it's helped us maybe have a slightly better understanding. I think one of the things that we teach in our training when you sign up to be a volunteer, we talk a lot about the program itself and what the experience as a volunteer is like, and how to be, um, how to interact with your student. But we also talk about cultural differences and also how to deal with trauma related to the war. But a couple of things that are mentioned in our cultural differences is that sometimes Ukrainians can be seen as maybe a little bit more cold or stern when you first meet them. and where, we might come off as bubbly and smiley and, ready to jump in and talk. They're more reserved. So I think that has been something that has been a learning experience for both sides, the students and the volunteers within our organization. And we have volunteers from over 80 countries. So there's so many different cultural differences, which really makes the program even more special, is that you're learning about people from all over the world.
And I love how y'all incorporate everyone. It's not just US based.
Yeah.
And just to wrap things up a little bit, why do you think it's important for youth to get involved just in general within their communities?
Well, I think youth, you are our future. You are our future. So I think at any age, it's really important to get involved in your communities, to understand your communities and what the needs are, and to do your best to serve those needs and better your community for those who live in it, and then for your future and for the future of the generations that come behind you. Um, on top of that, by giving back, uh, it brings a lot of happiness and joy into your own life. So you may think about it as doing something for someone else, but in the end, when there's so many studies done that talk about studies done on volunteering and the impact it has in the community, but also the impact it has on you. It's a great way to lift your own spirits as well as those in your community.
I definitely agree, and I really hope this has encouraged people to get out there and make a difference. Thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. It's meant a lot to me.
You're welcome. Thank you for reaching out to us. I really appreciate you choosing us, and it was really a pleasure.